Hey, what is up, mortals? It is Trina here with a new video for you. Welcome to part 13 of What If Deku was given the Six Paths power. I just wanted to greet you guys by just saying, sit back and relax, you're in for a treat. So we begin. The sound of the firearm being fired resounded throughout the forest, and then everything went quiet for an instant.
That hurt!
Toga complained as she now had Uraraka on top of her. Neither had noticed who had been shot yet. Uraraka quickly checked herself over, scared that she had been affected once more. But thankfully, she didn't see the projectile anywhere in her body. A second later, though, she noticed a faint yellow glow emanating from the girl beneath her. And then, upon further inspection, a teal-colored capsule could now be seen sticking out of the village's beige cardigan. But even as this glow vanished, not much happened. It was almost as if she hadn't even been affected.
But how? You got shot!
Uraraka pointed out as she tried to keep Toga in place.
I did? So I'm back to middle school me? Yay! Back then, my craving used to be suppressed, so I can't wait to suck you dry.
A sharp pain then made itself known as Uraraka's thigh was punctured by a needled gray canister. Toga could only smile, almost erotically, as she began taking the younger girl's blood little by little. Uraraka, though, saw the now discarded gun a few feet away, and with the help of her scarf, she got it into her hand and pointed it at the blonde, who couldn't be bothered to look her in the eye as she was lost in the moment.
I'm sorry, but you give me no choice!
She shouted within herself as she got the strength to push the trigger. Once more, the weapon was used, the projectile hitting Toga in the back, and unlike before, she surely reacted this time. Without hesitation, she pushed the little Uraraka off her and began to run off into the forest. The light yellow outline was already around her, and the effects had begun to take effect. This time, they were pretty noticeable too.
Ugh, you just had to ruin the fun, right? Little Ochako couldn't just be spectacular. She also had to...
Toga shouted but was forced to stop as she began to contract a second time. Unlike the first time, this one would be impossible to hide. Her cardigan sleeves completely engulfed her hands, and her green utility belt began to slide off, but she caught it just in time. Then her skirt, which just a minute earlier had become slightly loose thanks to the first dose, now quickly became too big, and she was forced to let it fall off as she heard the students nearby. Her knife packs were also lost alongside her shoes and her dark knee-high socks as they crumbled away from her as she disappeared from view. As the glow faded, a now 10-year-old Toga hid behind a tree. She only had her oversized cardigan on her and the top of her school uniform beneath it. In her hands, her heavy equipment now rested. Himiko could only stare in anger as she realized that she had given away so much for just half a vial of blood. Not to mention the gun with the mostly filled clip she had accidentally left behind for the heroes to keep.
Curse you, Ochako! You may have reversibles, but next time I'll show you who's a real little one. But now, I wonder what your blood tastes like.
Toga said to nobody in particular as she began to drink some of her acquired prize. You two okay? Izuku asked as he reached Uraraka and Tsuyu.
Just a scratch here and there, Ribbit,
Asui answered. Meanwhile, Uraraka stared at the firearm in her hands, and tears began to come out.
I think I'm okay,
she lied as she regrouped with the others.
Ochako.
Tsuyu said as she tried to make sure that her friend was okay.
Just a bit of guilt, that's all.
Uraraka replied while wiping her tears away.
I made someone else go through what I went through intentionally. I shot that girl twice.
So that gun has rewinding bullets? Izuku then asked.
I think so, but their color is completely different now.
The trio continued their discussion as they ran to find their classmates. There was no real reason to stay still. Deku tried to lessen Uraraka's guilt by pointing out that she had done so in self-defense, but to her, this didn't matter. So there could have been a better way to deal with this. Soon enough, those lingering thoughts came to a stop as they met up with another group of students. This one consisted of Bakugo, Shoji, Tokuyami, and Todoroki. Now, as a group of 7, they ran ahead in the hopes of helping everyone else. A scorching cadaver was now in front of Dabi. A student had been hiding in plain sight, and once he noticed who this was, he just felt like taking care of it. One less loose end, he said as he walked away from the flaming body. Perhaps there was a bit too much, Twice commented as a spectator. Barbecues sure are fun, his other half then replied.
Hey! Hey!
They heard as some bushes began to move. Whoever had just talked was not someone they recognized.
It's just us, huh?
Himiko then exclaimed as she popped out of the bush for all to see. That crazy one, Dabi let out. And you're a brat now as well. What gives? Yeah, what happened to you? Twice added. What a cutie you became. His other half then spoke.
My plan backfired, but I got so much blood! Look, it sparkles!
Toga exclaimed while showing off her prized possession. Just one? I thought you said you would get at least 3.
Nothing I could have done about it. If I stayed any longer, I would have been killed, she explained.
Both of you, shut it! Dabi shouted as Mr. Compress crashed nearby, and above him an angry Izuku Midoriya could be seen. All the villains then tried to gang on Izuku, but they were all easily repelled away. The only one who hadn't done so was Toga, as she hid from what she thought to be certain death.
That must be the boy Shigaraki talked so much about before going to sleep! He's so cool!
If her thoughts had been any louder, they would have spilled out. But as everything was becoming hopeless for the League of Villains, portals began to open up, and out of one of them, their leader, All For One, appeared. And in a flash, he stole Shoji's quirk, and a second later blew his upper half clean off, killing the boy.
Thanks for the quirk. This one could help Tomura,
he said as he then pounced on Bakugo to grab him.
As for you, rejoice! You're about to get taken away.
Bakugo defended himself with a massive explosion that sent him flying away. Everyone, get out of here! He's only after me! Bakugo commanded as he got ready to fight, but what he didn't expect was for All For One to already be behind him.
Bravo, Katsuki Bakugo. You are indeed correct. Now, don't resist.
All For One calmly said. Go to hell! Dynamite screamed as he began an onslaught of explosions on the infernal creature next to him. Without much effort, All For One reached through the explosion barrage and grabbed the young hero's arm, twisting it back until a loud crack was heard. Ah!
I did warn you. Now behave yourself and come along.
All For One stated. He had then knocked out the boy and placed him on his shoulder. Kanchan! Izuku screamed with all his might as he formed his full-powered gauntlet, ready to murder the villain right then and there.
Forgive me, but the multiple delays have made it, so we are out of time. This will have to continue at a further date. Reflect!
An invisible wall stopped Izuku's attack, and right after setting it back at him, the Reflect quirk did as its name implied. Deku crashed through the forest at high speed, destroying everything in his path and leaving a straight and barren line in its place. Once he collided with a vast boulder, it was over. He detransformed and collapsed on all fours. He couldn't move and even less stand. It was a miracle that he was still conscious. And just like that, the villains retreated, and the heroes were left in utter defeat once more. Many students had been injured in the conflict, some critically while some just had minor wounds. Only Kendo had been regressed out of all the students in the lodge, yet another permanent loss, but not as permanent as the 2 lives lost that night. The students known as Yuga Aoyama and Meizo Shoji had perished at the hands of the League of Villains. One of the members of the Wild Wild Pussycats had also gone missing, Pixie Bob. In more positive news, 3 villains were apprehended and arrested, later to be executed for their contribution to this and past crimes. Regrettably, all the other villains who left them had vanished without a trace. And so, the forest training camp came to an end with the worst possible outcome imaginable. This video is sponsored by NordVPN. Staying safe online is an ever-growing difficulty, and hackers could exploit you. NordVPN allows you to change your IP address, making you harder to track, securing your privacy. In addition to providing you with safe passage through the web, you can also expand the reach of your favorite streaming services. Are you tired of going through 2, 3, or even 4 streaming services to watch your favorite anime? Well, with NordVPN, you can change your country and be able to binge shows like My Hero Academia, Naruto, and many others on your favorite streaming service with just a press of a button. Check out the link in the description to get 72% off when buying for 2 years /$3.29 a month. This deal is for a limited time. And thank you to NordVPN for sponsoring this video. The following day, UA High got bombarded by everyone due to the events that had transpired. And now more than ever before, they were almost guaranteed to be closed down. But as this was going on, All Might and most of the pro heroes were informed that the League of Villains HQ had been located and that an assault would be conducted shortly. All Might didn't hesitate, and he made it known that he was in for the raid. He would avenge all the people that those vile villains had ever hurt. Even though this should have been confidential, All Might decided to tell his student about it. Deku immediately replied and told his teacher that he would take part in it as well. He knew that he wasn't allowed to engage the villains, but he could help get Kacchan out of there. Izuku didn't care whatever All Might's response was. He just knew that he would go and save his friend no matter what. All Might agreed on these terms and sent the information over for Midoriya to read. If everything worked out, they would be doing this tonight. Once the call concluded, Izuku tried to compose himself. He was already breaking down again. He had broken his promise as 2 of his classmates had died once more, and Bakugo had also been captured. In reality, this day felt like hell to the young boy, but no matter what, he had to make things right. Getting Kacchan back would be only the start. On that very night, the heroes were ready for payback, as they now stood united outside of the very building that housed the group of villains. And with a few knocks, they made themselves known. And with the pizza delivery, they initiated their strike. Smash! All Might shouted as he broke through the wall. The heroes then quickly apprehended all the villains while Deku grabbed Bakugo and flew out of there at super speed. The plan had succeeded, or so they thought. In the blink of an eye, it had all switched around as all the villains disappeared into black goo. Far away, Bakugo also did the same, making Izuku scream in terror. But by the time he got back, most of the pro heroes had been rendered unconscious, and only All Might remained as he fought All for One. Bakugo, being nearby, only made it, so All Might had to hold back. Izuku was about to intervene, but then he saw some of his classmates hiding in the rubble nearby. Ida, Todoroki, Yaoyorozu, and Kirishima were there, unable to move out of fear. Deku approached them and formulated a plan. It was true that they couldn't fight, but all they had to do was get Bakugo out of there and let All Might handle the rest. They all agreed to it and put it into motion. Less than a minute later, Ida launched himself with the help of Todoroki's ice ramp, and with the hanging Kirishima calling out to his friend, it was all but expected to succeed.
Leaving so soon? How about a parting gift?
All for One took out a red bullet out of his pocket and flicked it at high speed towards the blonde boy, hitting him precisely at the moment that he caught the redhead's hand. Many years of training vanished in an instant. The quirk that had granted Katsuki Bako popularity and praise had now disappeared, erased forever. The first ever quirk erasing bullet manufactured had made it a reality, and now the boy had been rendered quirkless just like the boy he had humiliated throughout a good part of his life. The dream of ever becoming the #1 hero became unreachable, and just like that, the hero known as Dynamite received an early retirement. "You bastard!" Deku screamed as he saw what All for One had done. Inside of the boy, a rage awakened. "Young Midoriya, no!" All Might shouted as he tried to stop his student from fighting All for One. Because of this, All Might was forced to get in the way and punch All for One away. This was for him to finish alone. For everyone that had been taken away, for Nana, and most importantly, for the future to be bright again. And in a moment of desperation, he knocked his student out so he could finish this once and for all. "Forgive me, young Midoriya, but I can't allow you to die here. As your master, I will take on the burden just like my master did for me." A battle of gods then ensued as both symbols clashed without holding anything back. The blows formed shockwaves, and everything around them crumbled away as if a natural disaster was passing through. It didn't last as All Might was mortally wounded. A blast had gone clean through and ripped out a good part of his lower torso, and right after, he had been stabbed in the left shoulder until it shattered. All for One laughed at the sorry state his nemesis ended up in. Now, he was even deflating back into his normal state for the world to see. A ginormous arm then formed from the symbol of fear as he combined many quirks that he had at his disposal, including Shoji's, to add insult to injury. All Might was ready to embrace death, but then he heard a voice from within him. "When you think that you're at your limit, always remember that." Nana Shimura began to say as a memory resurfaced within the symbol of peace. "Master?"
Calling out to your master? You've gone mad in your last moments. No matter, you'll be joining her soon enough.
All for One shouted as he launched his final attack. "I'll beat you not because I'm a symbol, but because I will do as my master did for me. Until I pass it on to young Midoriya, I refuse to die!" A flame formed from within All Might as his will burned brighter than any star. All Might dodged the strike from All for One, losing his left arm in the process, but this sacrifice allowed him to pour every ounce of strength he ever had onto his right one.
Cheap tricks like that won't work on me. Your weak strikes won't face me.
All for One stated as he readied his other arm to become the same monstrosity as his right. "That's because I didn't put my back into it those times!" This power has been entrusted to the next generation by many people, praying that it would work for the good of all, for all their hopes to become one. It's your turn now. Do your best, Toshinori. Nana told his student as she handed him the core of One for All. And he grabbed it, making his arm expand to a level beyond that of his buff form. This would be the deciding move. "Farewell, All for One!" A star erupted, and out of its flames, All Might emerged. His fist collided with All for One's face, and a scream soon followed. United States of Smash! The attack demolished the symbol of fear so hard that his entire body ceased to be. But in those final moments before fading away, he did have one thought. I leave the rest to you, Tomura. As the smoke settled, All Might stood victorious, and he raised his remaining arm to announce his victory. But not soon after, it flowed into the wind similar to ash. Evil Incarnate had been slain, but at a great cost. Minutes later, Izuku regained consciousness in the hands of Gran Torino, who had kept him safe. Deku demanded to see his mentor. With a saddened look, Gran Torino complied. He took the boy into the huge crater, and down at the very bottom, what remained of All Might was clinging to life. All Might! Izuku cried as he transformed and tried to heal his master. Young Midoriya. The barely conscious All Might replied as he motioned for his pupil to stop. There was no point in wasting his energy on him. Please don't speak! Help will arrive soon! It's okay, young Midoriya. I'm at the end of the road, but before I conclude this journey, I might ask you one last thing. All Might continued. He was becoming quieter every moment that passed. What is it? Izuku asked. The tears were beginning to overflow the boy. Take one of my hairs and eat it. Pardon? What? It might sound weird, but this is how One for All's passed on to the next user. So please take one and eat it. As my successor, you have the right to do so. All Might clarified. Okay, I'll do it! With tears in his eyes, Izuku exclaimed and plucked a hair right off his master's head. Even though grossed out by the act, Midoriya carried it out and swallowed the hair. He waited and waited, but he felt no different. Had the transfer failed? All Might, I leave the rest to you. All Might whispered as his soul left this realm. Indeed, he had passed on. Deku broke right then and there as he cried on top of his master's corpse, and the rest of the world became a blur. The person he admired ever since he could remember, his mentor, and most importantly, a father figure he desperately lacked, had died, and this would forever leave a hole in his heart. All for One had been dealt with, but the world had somehow been plunged into a deeper darkness than ever before. In the sky above, a yellow star faded away. Thank you all for indulging yourselves in all this information thus far. I hope you enjoyed it. Now, there are a few more things that I'd like to go over before the video ends. Firstly, I'd like to thank our patrons, BD Flames, Ethan Davis, Terry Childs, Shifter Melace, Adam Zadgel, XAV Beto 3, Zill, and Joshua Phelps. Secondly, I also like to thank all of our YouTube members, Toya Costa, Rob the King, Sith Lord 906, CF2364 and Knuckles, Remy Tempest, Angel Wars, Donald C. Stewart, Bryant Greer, and Refik 135. Thirdly, if you're in the mood for some great storytelling, We the Celestials has you covered. Our We the Celestials, My Hero Academia, and Naruto What If channels retell the story of their namesake anime with a twist. Check it out if you're interested. Fourthly, on behalf of We the Celestials, I'd like to thank everyone involved in today's excellent content production. Their details can be found in the description below. Lastly, if you're interested in what we do here at We the Celestials, I'd like to extend an invitation to join the team. The only caveat is that we only accept members from 16 years old to join our crew. You can sign up for whichever category fulfills your interest by joining the recruitment Discord using the link in the description below. We're always looking for members to join us. And if you want more content from me, check out my streams on Twitch at Trina Do Heart and also my social media at YouTube Trina Do Heart as well. Well, that's it from us for today's video. So thank you all for watching and have a great day.